A stone which lies in a mountain river changes over time. Honed and ground by the water, the most patient of sculptors. Gradually the stone becomes smooth and rounded. A person who lives for long periods under an open sky in close contact with nature also changes. He starts to truly understand the Kendala. Kendala lives in heart of every Kazakh who hasn't forgotten the most treasured things in the world, the land and liberty. This is what the ancestral nomads were most afraid of losing. The contours of the day have not yet been determined, and the world is only just beginning to show signs of life. Nobody is forcing anyone to arise before the sun, but no matter where the nomad found himself, he would always open the yurt's door some moments before sunrise. For him, the appearance of the sun is much more than the promise of heat and light. Where he spends the day and how he spends it depends on the sun. Based on its movements, the nomad gains a reference point for orientation, the time of day and the year. For this reason, both the sun and the day share the same Kazakh word, kum. My name is Sayed. I'm a descendant of the nomads. I live in the southeast of Kazakhstan, 100 kilometers from the city of Almaty, in the village of Shien. I have a large house there. My children live there now. My wife, Altingul, and I spend most of our time tending to the pastures. At first sight, it would appear that grazing the cattle on the pastures might be easy. Only the weather was that good. You just get on your horse and whisk yourself off with a crop, chasing the cattle. I once thought that way too. That was at the start of the 80s, in Soviet times. At that time, our young people were invited to join the shepherding working teams. Within the country then, there was a drive to revive the farm animal industries. I was young, and I didn't have any experience. I endlessly herded cattle from one place to another, and it didn't allow them to graze freely. So at the end of the first year, the animals looked thin and exhausted. They hadn't had time to put on weight and to develop fat. Later, I gradually developed skills. I learned to manage the farmland so that the pastures were well used and the sheep were well fed. A lot was taken from the experiences of our ancestors. Based on this rich heritage, I was able to hang on to the animals much longer. We tried to avoid places with sparse vegetation and left it for the grass to grow for the following season. The nomads understood the pastures no less than today's scientists. They called the alkaline soil on which the plants became covered in a layer of salt the alajamir. The lowland areas where both grass and bushes grew were called shubar. The inclines where snow was driven up by the wind were called karabaur. Each pasture was made use of, taking into account the season and possibilities for feeding. This tradition of maintaining a careful attitude towards the pastures and sources of water was passed on from generation to generation. Everyone knew that the well-being of the family and the whole of the community depended on this. For this reason, a lot regarding the way the nomads lived was connected with their surroundings and with the animals. Even now in the villages, people greet each other with the words, "Good health to all the members of your household, both cattle and people." This greeting started to lose its meaning when we left the old ways, but it hasn't been replaced with anything new. From day by day and year to year, the cattle grazed in the same places around the villages. The foliage began to become damaged and many fodder plants disappeared, but in contrast, the weeds gained in strength. Our village of Chien is located in the foothills. Here the countryside is generous, therefore the topsoil hasn't suffered a great deal. But in those villages which are in the steppe and semi-desert zones, the grass is trodden down to the base earth, and in places the ground has become like takir. This results in a vicious circle. The cattle can't gain weight because the food is poor and people don't receive any income. Well, what sort of an income can you get from a sheep that weighs no more than 40 kilograms? Representatives of the Ministry of Agriculture of the Republic of Kazakhstan, the UNDP and GIZ suggested that the inhabitants of 4 rural districts take part in a pasture project. The aim of the project was to make use of pasture land in such a way that it is useful for the cattle industry, people gain a profit, and the countryside loses nothing. At first we didn't believe in the project. But then we realised that it would operate primarily in our interests, so we supported it. In order to make the best use of our pastures, we decided to introduce cattle to the pasture sites, to unite the animals into communal herds. To do this, we hired skilled shepherds. We decided to pay them monthly, based on a fee per head of cattle. The cattle pasture lands were defined. They change 3 times a year based on the season. In the summer, they're on the Jailao in the mountains. During the winter months, they herded towards the sands of the Kistao. In this place, there are warm shelters for the shepherds and pens for the animals. The autumn is spent in the Kuzdeyu. These autumn pastures are located a little beyond the summerlands and closer to the village. The snow peaks at the top of the Suyuk-Tebe and the long ridge of hills are visible. In all weathers they look like a wave on the sea, which can't be calmed in any way. Also, our village is visible from there. We find out what's going on and what's new with the project from our visitors.
Kalay, maldarın kalay. Hayır bana Arap. Senin arcağında. Sen ne verirsen. Ha, tamam. Жақtar ерде. Al. Mal bastarın aman bolsun. Biz gelip turamız. Biz gelген сайын күтіп алып тұрдан қарсы алып. Халықтың көңілін шыңдармалын бар.
Отырыңыз машинаға.
Some people from the project came here, together with Tursibai, the chairman of the Jailao committee. The Jailao committee provides the know-how. is made up of about 13 or 14 people, the village leader, local experts in the cattle industry, farmers and inhabitants of the village. However, with the new, it's better to leave the old behind. The Council of Elders used to solve the problems. Such matters as whether to herd to the Jailao, the Kistau or the Kuzdayu. Our Jailao committee also solves similar matters. Which pastures should be used to graze the cattle, and where to sow fodder grasses, on what site to construct a well, and who should be allocated a yurt. I received this yurt thanks to the project because I supported the idea of reviving the cattle industry and became an active participant in the project. This was a great event for my family. Today, as part of the project, the shani racks of 24 new yurts have been positioned in different seasonal plots, complete with solar power. Now we have a place where we can survive the heat and the cold, and where we can receive guests. All the families located remotely are in close communication with each other. Jandos has a place on that side of the ravine. It's his first year in the fields. He's still a young man. Jandos will stay there just until October, and then he'll go home to his village. Earlier, he earned more money working as a builder in the city, but now he's decided to try his hand as a horse groom. As it turns out, he's not bad at it. I try to help him with advice. Also, my wife, Altingul, gets on with his wife.
Çay içelim değil.
Çay içelim.
Çay içelim.
Mehmet.
Mehmet, şunun verirsen. Ay, Mehmet.
Yerjan tends to his herd about 2 kilometers from me. In the autumn, the snow is already laying on the Suik Tabay, and it is very cold on the Jailao. For this reason, both he and I have moved on to the autumn pasture. But then Amirjan and his wife have remained in the mountains. Now they're unable to come down. There are dense thickets of feathergrass along the migration path. In the autumn, this feathergrass becomes as sharp as needles. When they pierce a sheep's skin, these sharp thorns disintegrate, and if they find their way to the liver or the lungs, the animal dies in a very painful way. Amirjan will wait until the frost makes the feathergrass fragile, so that it is easy to break without causing any harm to the sheep. At the moment, it is very difficult for Amirjan. There are often wolves in the area. It is often necessary there to check that everything is well in the pens if the dog starts barking wildly at night. At the moment, everything's under control, and it's possible to get some sleep. When our daughter comes for the weekend to the Kuzdayu, the first thing she does in the morning is switch on the radio. There's just enough power in the batteries for the radio. It isn't possible to watch the television as well. I'm considering buying a portable generator set or a solar panel, like they have in the Pasture pasture. They've already set up a solar array there as a part of the project. With that, it's possible not only to connect the lights in the radio, but also to watch TV and charge your mobile phone. By the way, thanks to the project, we're seeing really interesting innovations which we can apply ourselves. We've sunk new wells into the sand. One has been restored and the others are new. Now people can graze their cattle there without any problems. It's no wonder that people say that a good deed is to dig a well in the desert. Those, like me, who live in the foothills where there's water, don't have any problems. Here there are springs. Water flows from the glaciers. It is very pure, and therefore you can find trout in it. Sometimes our men go fishing in the evening. They just bang the stones, shout and whistle to disturb the fish, then put a net in. If you don't do that, the fish dart out at the speed of the water stream. I'm not a fan of fishing or hunting. I don't even hunt wolves, I just shoot the gun in the air. The wolves are also part of our kendala. Every blade of grass, every insect, and every animal in the steppe has its function. That's exactly how our ancestors perceived the world. On first appearance, it would seem that ants do everything chaotically and that their lives are in disorder. But this isn't the case. They coordinate their actions, sending each other signals. Why is it that despite being blessed with the ability to reason, we can't live with nature in consent and understanding? We trample the grass, destroy all life on Earth, and harm the whole planet. When sun rays fall on the grass, their energy is absorbed and will be transformed. But the defenseless naked Earth lies under scorching heat and is capable of giving nothing. All it does is heat up the atmosphere. This is why we're suffering from desertification on the planet. I'm proud that I'm taking part in such a project for sustainable management of pastures. With sustainability, we'll never lose the great steppe, the kendala which was bequeathed to us by our ancestors, and which we should similarly leave as a legacy to our children and great-grandchildren.